In my opinion, there are a lot of pro teams who don't use Viper correctly. And to give you an example of that, we're going to take a look at the NA Game Changers Championship Final, the very last round of the game, EG versus version 1, and I just want you to think about what's wrong with this round.
Won already the first two.
We've already been gifted overtime in this series. The potential to do it again if version 1 can get this round over the line. Op in the hands of Floor and 3 ults to work with. Well, of course, there's an op on the other side for Keency. And these last couple of rounds for EG have been quiet, and it seems like that's the case again, Bala.
Yeah, they've been working the map really nicely. But don't forget, last round there was a bit of an eco from V1. They kind of tried to force up a crazy situation down in middle.
Here.
Oof.
This is not peeking deep enough for Nella right here.
Here.
Can't see that TP on the screen, by the way. So Floor's position still unknown, but the wall. Oh my god. Saw the barrel, saw the barrel.
Oh
No
my
way!
gosh! I can't believe she took the shot!
Yeah. A little bit to the right, she would have hit it for sure, but my goodness, here comes the ult from Mori, gets a tag on the site too.
Sarah's paranoia bought so much time though. And then they have the dimensional drift, but that leaves Sarah to take the fight on her own.
30 seconds.
Floor scooping up a weapon, or at least trying to, but it got taken right up from under her.
She has nothing. There's the Vandal.
Finally picked up, no armor. She's got to deliver here. Neural theft used. 4v2. Can they pull it off? It's all on Mel, and I don't know that they can. EG drops her. They've done it. They stormed the castle. They cracked the...
So did you spot what was wrong with the round? Because if we come to this point with about 46 seconds left into the round, we have not used either the Viper Orb or the Viper Wall. Both of them have not been even put down at this point. And the thing is, they are about to go down in just a second. You can see it just here starting to go down. So it goes down with about 45 seconds left in the round. But the thing is, that's 55 seconds into the round, right? And at 55 seconds, this is what you can do with the Viper abilities. You can go from 100 fuel to 0 by just using one of the orb or the wall. You can then go 0 back to 100 and let it fully recharge, and then again go from 100 to 0 by using both of them in 55 seconds. You can do all of that, and we haven't even used the Viper abilities once. And that really is the whole point of this, that when you're playing Viper, you need to be using that wall, using those orbs to create pressure across the map, basically as often as you can, and that should start, ideally, at the very start of the round. And we can see this in good Viper setups, like the one that is obviously meta on Bind from rounds like this, EDG versus Loud, where the first thing that you can do with a Viper setup is, use it to basically make choke points not exist, right? You can just have people staring at walls, and what should be the choke point from a map design point of view should be this, right? This is a small little narrow gap here. This should be the choke point you're looking at. But it doesn't exist because Viper is there, right? The wall goes up, and look, oh, we're already past it. Nice choke point you got there. It doesn't exist. Or take a look at this round on Haven, where Durka is just staring at a wall. He can't get the information, so they have to have two players towards A, and eventually he just kind of gets pinched in between the two sides and dies and gives up the site.
What's the challenge in Sur if they fancy going back towards A?
Fnatic didn't really adjust at all based on that B fake pressure at the start of this round. They're still in nice spots to stop the A hit.
Here.
Durka and Leo, the two on the site. The entirety of Loud coming up. That should be big info. Start ringing the alarm bells. Loud are in. Aspas taking those steps, but Durka trying to survive down here. Trying to keep some space for himself, but he's been called back towards site. And now look at Les, closing the gap. They're so aware. Aspas with the punish. And once again, perfection from Loud on the site take.
And there are three kinds of Viper setup, in my opinion, for the attack side. The first one is what I'll call a combo setup, right? Where you have both the orb and the wall kind of together. You're going to put both of them up at the same time, like we often see on Bind. The second one is a separate setup, like you might see on Icebox, where we have the wall and the orb in different positions. Obviously, in this kind of setup here, sometimes you'll put the orb up, sometimes you'll put the wall up. There are times where you might have both up at the same time, but, this is creating pressure on different parts of the map. And then the third one is where we just go for the wall setup. This is something you see some teams do on Haven. Some teams do go for a bit of a different setup. They might put the orb down towards B or C here, but some teams decide to save it for the post plant, using it over towards A instead, or using it over towards C in a post plant instead. And the reason that they might do this is because this wall is so important and you want to be putting up so much that you don't want to use the fuel for something else. You'd rather just keep putting up that wall. And another thing we should consider is that Viper setups can just destroy one-ways. So if one-ways are an important way a defender might try and defend a certain part of the map, then having a Viper setup here, like this one here, right, that Fancy United did on Ascent, you know, this is a very common one-way. Yeah, nice one-way, right? It didn't do anything. This is another thing that Viper can add. And for me, we've seen quite a lot of teams do something that I don't think makes much sense with Viper. Particularly on Breeze, we've seen a lot of solo controller Vipers. And I just don't think that that is a great way of playing the agent, because you kind of can't do some of those things that we've been talking about in this video. You often are going to have to save the wall because you don't know what site you're going to end up in a lot of rounds, and you want to save it for the site exec. But that means that you probably can't create a ton of pressure across such a big map like Breeze, whereas if you play double controller, you would be able to just put down a Viper setup early in the round and then just, you know, keep putting it up, putting it down, and creating pressure across the map. That's not really something you can do with solo Viper. And so when we're thinking about Viper, I would almost consider her, don't even think of her as a controller in a way. Think of her as more of a pressure tool. She's almost a separate role. When Harbor came out, people thought, oh yeah, maybe he'll be a secondary controller. No, there's only one secondary controller, and it's Viper, because she is almost a different role in the game, and that's how you should be thinking about her. And now let's talk about the defensive side as well, because there are a lot of examples, I think, of not using Viper to her full capabilities. In fact, let's come to that Loud versus EDG game that we showed kind of earlier, and this is the same round that we showed earlier, right? And Loud, what they're going to do with their Viper setup, obviously, is they've got the wall that kind of everyone uses. This one doesn't go through the teleporter, but it could, right? And they're going to come and put down their Viper orb just here. You see it just go up there, right? And this, to me, is not a very good Viper orb. This Viper setup doesn't make a lot of sense, particularly when they're playing triple controller, and you could just smoke this with, you know, I mean, Omen could definitely come and smoke this for you if you wanted to smoke that. That would be fine. But let me explain why I don't think this is that good of a setup. Because if, let's say, the attackers did come down here, right, towards your Viper orb where it was, and they pressure you and they push you back, you're going to have this Viper orb up. You're not then going to have the fuel for the wall. Right? What we want to be doing with these defensive setups is not have stuff together. We want to have the orb on one side of the map and the wall on the other side of the map. And perhaps the greatest example of this kind of defensive setup that we see is on Haven, where we have the wall often going from C into Garage, and we have the Viper orb over to A. And there are countless examples of teams struggling with that Viper setup, whether it's going towards C and Garage or whether it's coming towards A. We've seen countless teams try and attack into it and really, really struggle with it. And obviously the point is that when you have a separate Viper setup like that, you can put those things up for a very long time. And that's the crucial point, right? It's not like on attack where we can just put up for a bit and, you know, maybe we've snuck through a certain part of the map and then we can put it down. That's not how it works on defense. On defense, we want to stall as long as we possibly can so that that gives us time to rotate if we need to across there, right? So we're often going to be keeping it up for as long as we want to, really. And so for Loud on their Viper setup, instead, what I think you might want to do, and what you might want to do for Viper defensive setups in general, is probably an orb lineup on one side of the map. So it could be something like this if you wanted an orb that was kind of more for the spike denial, right? If you feel like you can't hold on to short, this might help you, you know, stop them actually planting the spike. Or if you wanted to, you know, still put the orb on the box in kind of a more normal position, you might come and do this kind of lineup instead, where you kind of aim for the right hand part of this and just come up towards the edge of the crane just there, do a jumping throw, and this will land, you know, on the normal box where, you know, you might normally put a Viper orb down, right? Something like that. And obviously, if you do a lineup from this position here, you'll still have plenty of time to get back across to the other side of the map, where then you can put down your Viper wall, right? So you might do something, you know, just the normal Viper wall over here towards kind of Shower and B. And now your Viper setup is on, I mean, it's literally covering all four sides of this map, right? Like the 4 lanes, you have something on all 4 of those lanes. So, you know, if you want to do something like this, this will be pretty effective. And so that is how I think you should be playing Viper. On the attack side, you want to be creating setups that either deny a choke point from existing, or create a lot of pressure in a key area of the map. And for the defensive side, you want to be doing orb lineups, or, you know, if you do have time to get across the map, spreading out your Viper setup so that you can be as maximally efficient with your Viper fuel as you can be to cause a lot of problems for the attackers.